Man, somebody asked me last week, what niche Olympic um, events have I kind of been drawn to? And I hadn't watched the Olympics yet at the time. So I had no answer for them. But I was like, come back and see me after the weekend. When I go to my parents' house, I sit down, I consume the Olympics and kind of see what's going on. I will admit, I have not like sat down and actually watched the Olympics in probably like 8 years. So, man, a lot has changed. We'll get to a little bit of that today. As I sat down and watched a little bit of the Olympics, non-basketball related, and NFL top 100 finished its list, got to the top 10 last week, and it caused sort of a stir. We'll go over that list and see if you guys agree with it. Look, it's the top 100. Like, we'll talk about that, but like, I don't really like really deep diving into it. But this one did kind of pique my interest for one reason specifically. So we'll talk about it. But I'm more interested with this Hall of Fame class. I'm not a big Hall of Fame guy in terms of like watching the ceremony and kind of getting involved with all that goes along with the Hall of Fame. Partly because my team hasn't had a Hall of Fame player go in ages that have played, recently. And again, um, Art Monk went in not too long ago. I think Russ Grimm went in not too long ago, but for the most part, we really haven't had anybody go in. So it's easy to not get sucked in. But this one was different for me. And I'll tell you why. All of that and more here on the Louie T Network podcast that starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 437th installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Really appreciate you guys kicking it with the kid here on the podcast as we start to try to rev things up. I told you I'm going to try to find my way back into my proper slot. I'll still be all over the place. Like tomorrow night, we'll have another podcast episode, and that one will be kind of centered around Hard Knocks training camp with the Chicago Bears, episode 1. If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this, but I believe episode 1 will premiere tomorrow at 9 o'clock. If that's the case, I'll watch the episode and then we'll jump on live and we'll react to it among other topics. So that'll be outside of our normal window. But as we continue to, get into our preseason, so to speak, here on the Louie T Network podcast, I'm going to try to start finding my way back into my proper slots. And this is where the podcast generally goes, right here in that 4:30 to 5 o'clock window till about 6:30 roughly. So with that said, wanted to jump in here, talk about some of the things that I watched over the weekend, the Olympics being the thing that I consumed the most of this weekend. A lot of Olympic content. Somebody asked me last week, what were some niche Olympic, competitions and events that piqued my interest? And I had no answer at the time, but now having watched a weekend full of Olympic events, some of them I don't even know the name of. Like, that's how crazy the Olympic has evolved. The Olympics have evolved into this spectacle that I don't even recognize as a kid. There were only a certain amount of events that you showed up for. And I mean, it has expanded to all kinds of, like, I feel like when me and one of my sisters was growing up, we would make up these hood games, like these just ghetto ass games that no one should be playing. It's not safe. You shouldn't be doing this, but that's what two kids who have nothing better to do end up doing, making up some shit. I feel like a lot of these Olympic games were made up by like 8 and 9-year-old kids, and somehow made into an Olympic game. Like there's this one sport, I don't even know what this shit is called. It's like a hybrid between basketball, lacrosse, and like soccer, I guess. I mean, they're not kicking the ball, so I don't want to involve soccer. But there's a net, there's a goalie like soccer. But it feels more like a cross of like lacrosse and basketball. Like there's this miniature basketball that they're dribbling. Um, you can take 2 steps without dribbling, but if you take 2 steps, you then have to dribble. You pick up your dribble, you jump in the air, you have to shoot it or pass it or whatever. Um, and then there's like this 2-point line, and then there's a 1-point line. There's a free throw if you get fouled while you're shooting. This sport is so weird looking. It's like, who came up with this concept? Who made this shit up and said, you know what, this is an Olympic sport, right? The speed walking. I can't stop laughing watching the speed walking event. Like, what the hell am I looking at right now? Okay, it is the weirdest thing ever, watching people walk as fast as they humanly possibly can. Um, those hips are just moving, right? It's a hilarious. It's hysterical to me watching that. Um, I'm watching badminton. That's crazy to watch. Ping pong. I love watching the ping pong because me and my dad used to go heavy on ping pong. Not like how they do it though. Like it's crazy to see how they play and how intense it is. But I've seen ping pong before. That's not the first time I've seen ping pong as an Olympic sport. It's some of these sports that I've never seen before, like the speed walking, the sport that I don't even know what it's called. When did they start playing 3-on-3 basketball at the Olympics? Like, what the hell are we doing? Is the Olympic basketball, basketball women's and men's not enough? We have to do 3-on-3 now? Like, when did that become an Olympic sport? 3-on-3 basketball? Really? Like, what are we doing right now? Then um I was really into the beach volleyball, the 2-on-2. We were into that heavy. I did not know. Did you know Chase Budinger? So most of you probably don't even know who Chase Budinger is, but I heard the name and immediately bells and whistles and alarms start going off in my head because I'm a nerd and I don't forget names. A lot of times I don't forget faces, but I really don't forget names. So I'm like, that can't be the same Chase Budinger that was drafted into the NBA in like '09 and played like 4 years or 5 years in the league, who was a shooter out of Arizona. That can't be the same Chase. But I'm like, who else is named Chase Budinger though? Like that's a very specific name. I had to look him up. I'm like, he can't be the same NBA Chase Budinger. But I'm in my mind, I'm like, he's gotta be the same Chase Budinger from the NBA. But I've never seen a guy have a career like that, then turn around and then become an Olympic athlete in a totally different sport. I don't think I've ever heard or seen that happen. And somebody, well, actually, Louie, someone actually did that as recently as, of course, someone else did. I'm just telling you, I've never seen it before personally. Sure enough, I looked him up, and it was the same Chase Budinger that played in the NBA, that went to the University of Arizona, had a really good collegiate career, and now he is an Olympic volleyball player. Unreal. Him and his teammate are kicking ass, and they have a chance to medal. But we watched the female 2-on-2 for the U.S. Chang and Sarah Hughes, right? So we got into that. Chang and Hughes, right? Watching them kind of get after it. They beat the French, and I enjoyed that. So we were really heavy. And then, of course, the track and field, you know, watching the 4x4 mixed, watching the 100s. Obviously, that was one of the craziest races I've ever seen. That finish was wild. We thought the Jamaican had won, right? We thought the Jamaican had won, and my wife was the only person in the house that was screaming, no. What's my man's name? Shucks. He was talking shit about the NBA players too. Like, how can you call them world champions when they didn't beat Lyles? That's his name. Lyles won the Noah Lyles won the 100, and by a fifth of a hundredth of a second or something like that. 500th of a second. Like, I've never seen a race that close before. And Noah Lyles, I was like, you better win, bro. All that shit you've been talking, you better win. He came out amped and hyped, and he got it done. And it was a lot of fun watching them compete. Our girl Shakari didn't get it done. She came home with the silver, but for her journey and what she got, has endured, and having this being her first Olympic experience, to come home with silver is nothing to scoff at. That lady from St. Lucia, she can go, right? She can go. I think they call her Juju. She can go. So Shakari's got to clean up getting out of the blocks. And we watched her semifinal race, and she was able to come out slow, but overcome it because she was just faster than the rest of those girls. When you encounter somebody who is just as, if not faster than you, you can't get out of the block slow and expect to make up, that speed and make up that time lost by getting out of the blocks slow. She's got to work that, like, her next 4 years, she's got to focus in on getting out of the blocks faster. That's her biggest detriment right now. And she doesn't get out fast enough. And that's what cost her the gold, essentially. We watched the 1500s. That was fun because they still haven't done the finals there, but our guy Nagano got in. He will be going up against the big dogs, and he's not going to beat them. Those dudes are trained killers in that 1500. For those of you not familiar with what the 1500 is, it's essentially you running around the track 4 times. That shit takes a lot of energy. You got to pace yourself, and then you got to have it in the tank at the end to pull away. And one of those dudes, I forget where he's from, he's a dog. I mean, he's a straight killer. But I think Nagano has a chance to, I think he's got a chance to medal. I think he could come away with bronze. I don't think he can beat the other two. The dude from, I want to say he's from Great Britain. He doesn't, I don't know if it's Great Britain. It's one of those. He's from somewhere. He doesn't move me. He used to be a champion. The other guy has taken over since, and he looks to be the real deal. That's going to be fun to watch. I watched, of course, the Team USA beat Puerto Rico to clinch the #1 seed in the quarterfinals. So now all of the brackets are pretty much set now as they get ready to go after the medals. I watched the women's beat up on, who was it the last game they played? Germany, I believe it was. They beat Germany, if I'm not mistaken. So saw some of that, a little bit of swimming, didn't do a lot of swimming, but I was all over the place, man. There was this one sport where they looked like they were using croquette sticks, like not the croquette, because that's like the little hammer. It was like those little cane sticks, right, to hit the ball, and they're moving. Again, I don't know the name of a lot of these sports, but we watched a little bit of that. We were all over the place, man. It was kind of jarring to see all of these new sports that have been introduced over the years since the last time I watched it. I was like, what the hell is this? How do you play? What are the rules to this game? Like, I was so fascinated by the basketball hybrid lacrosse type game where you're dribbling and then you're running and then you're throwing it, and it's crazy. Like, I'm trying to learn the rules of this game. Like, how do you how many points do you get from here, from there? And do you get fouls? How many fouls do you get? What is a foul? Like, I've learned some of the rules, but it was just, again, it was a lot. It was crazy. But my dad was telling me about a rugby, game. I didn't get to see any of that, but he was like fascinated by the rugby game. He was like, yo, that was crazy. And I'm like, man, I wish I would have got to see that. So the Olympics have evolved. I said all of that to say this. Man, has it come a long way. I mean, there are so many games. I'm watching archery and they're shooting guns. I'm like, ain't no way another country is supposed to beat us because don't nobody love guns like we do, right? We got guns and shit, and we know how to shoot them. So I'm like, we should be winning in all of those, and we did win in that. I watched a little bit of the shot put and the discus throw and all of that stuff. So it was a really fun weekend to be able to sit down and just consume a lot of the Olympics. I think this week is the last week of the Olympics. I think it ends on the 11th, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like the Olympics are done on Sunday of this week. So everything is going to be, I think, finished this week. So the U.S. is killing it in the medals overall. They got a wide margin of a lead in terms of the medals. So we're dominating like we're supposed to. We just caught up in the gold department. China had jumped out to a nice little lead early, but we've since caught them. I don't know what the count is now in terms of gold medals, but I know we got a significant lead overall in the medal department, and we're not going to let up. We're not going to take our foot off the gas pedal. So it's fun to watch, all of this kind of transpire. And, you find yourself being patriotic, right? I find myself rooting like hell for, these Olympic teams and individuals. And I hope to see some more of them achieve the highest honor that you can, which is winning a medal, hopefully winning a gold. But in any event, just coming home with something, leave with something. You got there, you trained this hard for this moment, leave with something. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Katie Ledecky and Simone Biles. They continue to dominate at levels which we've, I won't say never seen before, but in the case of those two, I think I feel pretty safe in saying never seen before. Like Simone Biles is the GOAT, and so is Katie Ledecky. she had one meet, one swimming contest where they had to widen the shot because she had such a big lead to include the other swimmers. NBC had to widen the shot on the screen so they could fit in the other swimmers who were that far behind Katie Ledecky. Insane. So I digress. Anyway, let's get to the proceedings this evening and jump into the gym dropping session. Let me drop this gym on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T. Let me open you up, get you thinking a little bit. So I want to talk about the Hall of Fame 2024 class. And let me see if I can get that class up on the screen for you real quick. I should have done this before, but I was really just trying to get on the show and in front of you. And so I didn't put this stuff in here the way that I wanted to, but it's all good. Because we're going to take a look at this. So this is the Hall of Fame class of 2024 that you're looking at right here. A couple of veterans in Randy Gradishaw and Steve Mongo McMichael. A lot of you probably, if you're like me, who were wrestling fans back in the day, you probably remember Steve Mongo McMichael as a member of the Four Horsemen in WCW. But before he was that, he was a dominant defensive lineman for the Chicago Bears, one of the greatest defenses in NFL history, those 85 Bears. So he was a hell of a football player, if you weren't aware. But you take those two out of the mix, right? McMichael and Gradishaw. And I'm happy for both of them, especially both of them, really, because Gradishaw had been waiting a long time to try to get in. And you want these guys to be able to experience this while they're still living and breathing and can acknowledge the honor that's being bestowed upon them, what they earned essentially in their playing careers. And McMichael, we saw his wife come across the field during the Hall of Fame game. He couldn't be there. And a lot of people didn't know why, but he's dealing with ALS, and that's a debilitating disease that has really You know, he's bedridden at this point, man. I don't know how much longer he's got, but it was such a touching scene to see his teammates there, the ones that were already in the Hall of Fame from that 85 Bears group, Singletary and Dent and all of those guys. Jumbo Elliott, I think, was there too, and a number of guys. Not Jumbo Elliott. Was it Jumbo? It might have been Jumbo. There was a number of guys there from that 85 Bears team with their gold jackets on, honoring him. It was a really, really touching scene. And, you know, he obviously couldn't, you know, respond, couldn't talk, anything like that. But it was nice to see. But really, I brought this up because this class, and I just want you to focus in on the other 5 guys in particular, Dwight Freeney, Devin Hester, Andre Johnson, Julius Peppers, and Patrick Willis. To me, this is the first Hall of Fame class of our era. So if you're of my age group, maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, whatever the case may be, you watch the entire careers of Dwight Freeney, Devin Hester, Andre Johnson, Julius Peppers, and Patrick Willis. This is the first time I can remember a Hall of Fame class that has gone into the hall where you go, this is my era. This is my generation of players. I've watched their entire, like a lot of the older fans, they know Tim Brown. They watch Leroy Butler. They watch some of these other guys play their entire careers. I did not. I caught them on the back end of their careers most oftentimes. So a guy like Tim Brown, I saw his entire career for the most part. But you know, some players, they get in, you know, they played in the late 80s into the 90s, or they played in the 80s and the 90s, or they played in the 70s and the 80s, or they played in the, you know, the early 90s all the way to the early 2000s or something like that. And that's cool. But this is the first era, this class to me, of Hall of Famers where you go, no. I watched their entire career. I watched Dwight Freeney's entire career. I watched Devin Hester set the NFL record for most returns in an NFL career. I watched him set it as a rookie, the most returns in an NFL season by a rookie. I watched Andre Johnson come in as one of the most physically gifted receivers I've ever seen in my life. This man was 6'3", 230 pounds, running a 4.31 40. Like, you don't make that kind of stuff up, bro. Like, I don't think people understood how much of a beast Dre was, right? Julius Peppers, two-sport athlete, basketball at North Carolina, football at North Carolina, came into the league and just wrecked shop. And we watched him do this at a high level for the Panthers during that, you know, Super Bowl run in 2004. And then we watched him do it again with the Bears in his career, right? Like, he was awesome. And then there's Patrick Willis. A lot of people didn't think he'd get in, nor should he get in, because of the length of his career. He only played 8 years, and that was a part of his Hall of Fame speech where he was like, you know, he heard the noise out there. You know, he's not oblivious to this. And he was like, it's not about the length of time you play, it's about the impact that you have while you play. So that was his message. But all in all, we watched all of these guys, you know, the 5 guys that I just mentioned, Willis, Peppers, Johnson, Hester, and Freeney. We watched their entire NFL careers. And it's not often that you get to say that you watched their entire careers. But I can't think of a Hall of Fame class where 5 out of the 7 guys that were enshrined, I watched their entire careers. I know those players intimately. I can tell you about those guys and what they were able to accomplish and how I feel about them. There are times where I've fancied myself and I've labeled myself as a gatekeeper of the Hall of Fame, right? Even though I'm not in it myself, but I fancy myself as a gatekeeper and feeling like, hey, I don't think this guy was a Hall of Fame player. All 5 of those dudes were Hall of Fame players. You could argue with Willis if you want about the length of time he played, but if Terrell Davis can get in and Gale Sayers can get in, then Patrick Willis can get in the Hall of Fame, right? He was dominant for that 8-year stretch, one of the best linebackers in football that entire time he was playing. So um, all 5 of those dudes, Hall of Fame players, without question. Dwight Freeney in the spin move was one of the most ferocious pass rushers during the length of his career. You know, you say what you want about the Colts defensive units during those days with Manning and company and how they, defensively they weren't great, but they could get after the quarterback. You know, when Peyton would give them that lead, Freeney and Mathis would shut it down. And Freeney was the leader of that group. You watched Devin Hester. I've never seen anybody before and never seen anybody like him after, and I don't think we ever will. I had the privilege of watching his career start to finish, and guys like him, their highlights are timeless. I watched NFL on the NFL's X um, social media page. They put out a Devin Hester video showing every single one of his returns for touchdowns. He's got 21 in his career touchdown returns, which is insane. No one will ever even come remotely close to breaking that, by the way. And so I'm watching. He had 6 in his rookie season, including a kickoff return in the Super Bowl in his rookie season. I mean, let that sink in. Set the record for the most returns in a single season by a rookie, and then does it on the biggest stage there is in the Super Bowl. Just amazing. He was a huge part of why the Bears went to the Super Bowl that year. Like, they were really good defensively. Keep in mind, Rex Grossman was their quarterback, right? So they were limited on offense with Bernard Berrien. I used to call it the triple B bomb, right? The Bernard Berrien bomb, because all Bernard Berrien could do was run straight really fast, and Rex Grossman would chuck it deep and he'd go get it. But they were really good defensively, and then Devin Hester was the X factor on special teams. And just watching all of those returns, and just like all of them weren't just Devin Hester gets great blocking, hits the seam, and goes. He was tremendous at setting up the blocks, then the explosion to go once the hole opened up. And he was also a physical runner. He ran through tackles. He created yards after contact. He wasn't just this finesse guy with a bunch of speed that ran to daylight. He created a lot of that daylight, and he also ran through physicality, right? Ran through arm tackles, ran through people trying to nip at his ankles, jumped over guys trying to get him, kickers trying to stop him, throwing them aside, right? Finding ways, stiff arming guys, finding ways into the end zone. He was fantastic. Andre Johnson was a monster. You know, he, to me, was one of the first guys. And obviously there were guys before him like Terrell Owens, who were a much bigger receiver that was physical, also, showing that speed. But Andre Johnson took it to another level, I felt like. That combination of size, speed, athleticism, the ability, like, he was so good. And unfortunately, he played with the Texans. And while they were good, or a good regular season team, they never won in the playoffs. They'd win 10, 11 games in the regular season, win their division, host a home playoff game, and they get beat in that first game by Cincinnati or some other team that would come in there and beat them. Matt Schaub and them would never get it done. So he never really, I thought, got the respect that he should have gotten in his career, because he was so good for so long. Go look at his numbers. Go look at the damage he was doing throughout his career, and look at the cartoonish numbers he was posting year after year after year after year. This was our era of players: Peppers, Willis, Freeney, Johnson, and Hester. This was our era. We watched these guys play, and I really truly appreciated watching them be enshrined in the Hall of Fame. Like, I felt some type of way knowing that I could say I watched their entire careers, every single one of them, and they belong in the Hall. I've had, some guys where I go, he's a Hall of Famer. Leroy Butler is a Hall of Fame player. Yeah, I don't know about that. There's some guys that I've questioned. I didn't question any of these guys. And what a class this was. And now you go to the next year's, guys that are first year eligible. Eli's definitely getting in. Marshawn Lynch is in that group. There are a number of others that have first time eligibility. I don't know if any of the others will get in. I think other than Eli, right? Let me see if I can find that group real quick of guys that are eligible. Let's see. First year eligible Hall of Fame 2025. So, oh, never mind. I see Luke Kuechly's name on this list. He's probably getting in too. So, Travis Frederick, he's not getting in. Luke Kuechly, definitely. He's going to be the Patrick Willis of next year's class. I think he gets in. I don't think Marshawn Lynch gets in now. He may ultimately get in, but I don't think he gets in on the first try. Eli's getting in. Joe Staley is interesting. I don't think he gets in on the first shot, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him get in at some point. Terrell Suggs is really interesting. I could see him getting in on his first nod. Vinatieri, he should get in on his first attempt. I really think he should get in, but again, he's a kicker. They may make him wait just off of principle. Marshall Yanda with Baltimore was dominant. I could see him sneaking in too. Again, I don't know if he'll get in on the first crack because it's still, remember, it's still guys that should get in. Like, I don't understand how Antonio Gates didn't get in on his first ballot. Like, that's insane to me. You still got guys like Torrey Holt that needs to be put in. Reggie Wayne will get in here eventually, here shortly. You got Willie Anderson at tackle that probably should be in already. So Jared Allen is up. I would have thought Jared Allen would have gotten in. Well, I wonder how long he's been waiting, because that's kind of how I feel about like Terrell Suggs. He might be like how we see right now with Jared Allen. Jared Allen, from a statistical standpoint, probably belongs in the Hall of Fame. I'm pretty sure if we look at career sacks, Jared Allen is probably top. I probably put him top 10 in career sacks. Matter of fact, I'm interested. If he's not top 10, he's top 15 for sure. Jared Allen had a hell of a career. Let's see. Jared Allen career sacks. See where he is. He had 136 career sacks. That's got to put him in the top 10, I would think. 136 sacks, because there's not a bunch of guys walking around with 100, let alone 130. Let's see where he ranks among sack leaders. Where does Jared Allen rank in career sacks? Let's see. He finished his career ranked in the top 10. Of course he did. Where at in the top 10? He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 4-time first-team All-Pro, and led the NFL in sacks twice. He finished ranked in the NFL top 10 in sacks. That is a Hall of Fame resume, folks. So, see where he ranks all time. Right now, he is currently 12th because since he retired, Terrell Suggs, who is now eligible, passed him with 139, and DeMarcus Ware also passed him with 138.5, and he just went in last year, did DeMarcus Ware, if I'm not mistaken. So Terrell Suggs should be in, and Jared Allen should get in eventually. We'll see. Dwight Freeney just got in, and he's only got 125.5 sacks. I say only. I use that term very loosely, but Jared Allen is up there, man, 136. So he deserves to be in. He's not in yet, so you got to take that stuff into consideration. So a guy that, is at the same, position that's trying to get in may have to, be put on the back burner to allow a guy who hasn't gotten in yet in Jared Allen to get in. Same could be said for other positions, but it'll be interesting to see what they do next year and if I feel as good about that class as I did this particular class. But I just wanted to acknowledge that class of Hall of Famers and how I felt about them. It was really nostalgic watching those guys get in because that is our era. If you're of a certain age, if you're the age of 40 or less, really 45 or less, let's call it 45 to the age of 30, this was your Hall of Fame class right here, right? You watch these guys play every single snap of their careers, and you know what their body of work looks like, and you can vouch for them being Hall of Fame players. And it was fun to see that group get in. So let's now transition to our next segment, and it's social media maneuvers. I'm a midday marauder. Y'all know how we do it. I wanted to talk about the NFL top 100 list, and not specifically the NFL top 100 list itself. I just wanted to talk about the top 10. Look, the NFL top 100 list, it's a joke, and we all know this to be a fact. So I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know. At the end of the day, it's a list where a lot of it is predicated off of what you've done versus what you did in that season, which is what they should be voting on. The players, they're asking the players to vote, and not to sound like an ass, but the players are the worst people you can ask to vote for anything because they don't really truly know. I'm amazed at how many players are clueless as to what's going on around them. I'm actually shocked at how very few players are aware of what's going on around the league. And maybe that's a good thing because they have tunnel vision and they're focused on their craft and what their team is doing, this, that, and the third. But I just felt like you should be more aware of your surroundings and your peers and what's being done if you're in the league. But not everybody loves watching football when they're not playing. Not every player is locked into what other teams are doing around the league or what other players are doing around the league, but they know names. They know reputations. And so you get a top 100 list from the 2024 season, and somehow Aaron Rodgers, who played a whole 4 snaps last year, somehow is ranked 92nd of the top 100 players of the 2024 season. How is that possible, right? So this list is flawed, and you take it with a grain of salt. With that said, you still have to I still want to acknowledge the top 10 of this list in particular. So that's what we're going to do real quick. So I think the list that I want to show you guys, the file is a bit too big, and I'd have to save it as something else. So let me see if I can do that real quick. See if I can do that real quick. If I can do that, then I'm gonna be able to show it to you. So this got a little bit of attention over the weekend, or prior to the weekend, because Patrick Mahomes wasn't number one, and so people started making a big stink about that. And I'm like, do you guys know how this list is supposed to work? Because if you do, then you wouldn't have a problem with Patrick Mahomes not being first. Then somebody was like, well, if he's not first, he should at least be the first quarterback. And I'm like, once again, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. And so you got to be careful who you're listening to with this type of stuff, because a lot of these people don't really get it, right? So, all right, let's take a look at this thing. Let me pull it up on the screen for you so we can take a look. and assess this list, right? So this is the top 10 list. Okay, I had a little error. Let's see if they let me pull it up. If not, I can give you the list. It's not a big deal. I just wanted you to be able to see it. So this is the top 10 list right here. Top 10 lists voted on by the players in 2024. Tyreek Hill is your number one player in the NFL this past year. Remember, at one point, he was threatening 2,000 yards receiving. Now, 2,000 yards receiving in a single season is becoming more and more realistic because they keep expanding how many games are being played. I felt like in a 16 game season, if you got 2,000 yards, it's one of the most incredible feats we will ever see in an NFL season. Similar to rushing for 2,000 yards in a 16 game season. As you get to 17, and then they're going to eventually expand to 18 games. Now it doesn't require as much. You have 2 extra games to get to 2,000 yards. Somebody's eventually going to do it. And so when it happens, it'll be a major milestone. People will acknowledge it, but I'm going to put a little bit of a like asterisk next to it. Not that it's not a big accomplishment and feat, but the first to do it, it's going to be a major deal. But I'm still going to be one of those old man get off my lawn. Hey, you did it with 17 or 18 games. That said, Tyreek Hill was amazing last year. So what I don't understand the debate. Lamar Jackson was the MVP of the NFL. What are we talking about here? Right? Well, Mahomes, this list is flawed because Mahomes isn't number one on it. They're not asking you who the best player in the NFL overall is. Taking into consideration body of work and what they've done over the life of their careers to this point. We're just talking about the 2024 season. And if that is the case, Tyreek Hill was the best player in football last year, along with Lamar Jackson, and you could put them 1, 2, whatever order you want. Christian McCaffrey was, you could argue, the best all-around player. He was a touchdown machine. He caught it. He ran it. He did everything for the 49ers. He deserves to be ahead of Patrick Mahomes. I don't have any issues with this list thus far. Mahomes checking in at number 4. Guess what? You could argue this was statistically one of his worst seasons of his career. The offense was not good for most of the season. This was a Chiefs team led by their defense. What are we talking about? Now, he's still Patrick Mahomes, and he's still damn good, and I'm acknowledging all of that, and he should be in the top 5. But he wasn't better than McCaffrey, he wasn't better than Jackson, and he wasn't better than Hill in 2024. So I don't understand what all the debate is about, what all the huffing and puffing is all about. Well, this list can't be accurate. This can't be taken seriously. If Mahomes is not number 1, how is he not number 1? How is he not even the first quarterback on this list? Because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. That's why. Bottom line is, first of all, anybody that's taking these top 10, NFL 100 lists seriously, that's where you've gone wrong already. That's the first place where you've already gone wrong, because these players have no idea. They're given these lists at the Pro Bowl. They're given, like, I remember Chris Cooley telling us how he filled out his list, and it was garbage. He was like, yeah, I was at the Pro Bowl. They gave me this list. I didn't want to do it. I just started checking off names, and I gave it back to him. If that's what you're doing, you check off the most popular names. That nobody's going to get mad if I pick Aaron Rodgers. The man played 4 snaps last year. What is he doing on the top 100 list? Like, Jalen Johnson had a quote this past week where he said, this list is effing ridiculous. He was mad because he wasn't a top 100 player, and he was a Pro Bowler and he was an All-Pro this season. So he was like, there's no way I shouldn't be on this list, but you got Aaron Rodgers on this list. And so, yeah, he took a exception to it. To round out the rest of the top 10, though, Myles Garrett was 5. Remember, he was in the MVP discussion the first probably 10 weeks of the season. That game against Indianapolis that he turned in, almost off the strength of that game alone, he was almost the MVP of the league. He was ridiculous in that Colts win in Indy earlier in the season. Chris Jones was fantastic last year. A huge part of why the Chiefs won their second consecutive Lombardi, and he got that massive contract over the offseason, well-deserved. Trent Williams is holding out for more money, and the reason he can do that is because he's still one of the top 10 players in the NFL and probably the best offensive tackle still in football, even at his age. TJ Watt is the best pass rusher in the league, if you ask me. Myles Garrett is outstanding, but give me TJ Watt, man. This dude affects games. He affects outcomes. He intercepts passes. He forces fumbles. He gets to the quarterback. He stops the run. He does everything. Give me TJ Watt. He's a top 10 player. Travis Kelce, this is what's amazing. The third Chief in the top 10 of the top 100, which tells you, like, people talk about the Chiefs roster and they're this and they're that. They got talent, man. They do a really good job of figuring out what positions they're willing to pay and what they're not willing to pay, and they draft well at those positions so that they can overcome the fact that they may be cutting a corner here or there. But where there's talent, it is top of the pile. And you see that here with Mahomes, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, and they got some offensive linemen that are really good. They got they got a corner that I think is one of the best in football. As a nickel, he probably is the gold standard at the nickel position right now. And McDuffie, and yeah, they're loaded, man. They're loaded. They cut corners at corner, and that's why they just let their corner go and traded him to the Titans. And, you know, they cut a corner or two at safety. They don't overpay at the safety position, generally speaking. That's why they let Juan Thornhill go. But they know how to find them. They know how to coach them up. And, boy, did they have some talent. And then Max Crosby rounds out the top 10 at defenseman. And you know what was crazy is last year I actually had discussions like when the Raiders would play on national television, and I'd be telling people, yo, Max Crosby is the truth. And it was people like, Max Crosby is overrated. He is not one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. I don't see it. And I'm like, then you're not watching. Like, if you're just going strictly off the numbers, then he's not going to do it for you all the time. But if you watch a Raiders game and you watch Max Crosby empty the tank snap after snap after snap, and you go, and you don't walk away going, that guy's a problem, then I don't know if we're watching the same game. Is he top 10 in the NFL? I don't know about that. I don't know if he's a top 10 player in the league. He's definitely top 20. He's definitely top 20. But anyway, I digress. I just wanted to bring that to your consciousness and talk about it because I saw a lot of scuttlebutt surrounding that over the weekend, and I just found it a bit hilarious. Let's get to the comment section, see what you guys are talking about briefly. We got a little bit of time here to discuss whatever it is you guys want to, so we'll do that. Remember, use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air if it is pertinent. Time permits, we will get to it. I can't assure you that we will get to all of your comments because, again, time has to permit. But I can assure you that if you super chat, we will get to your comment and you go straight to the front of the line. So if you want to ensure that your comment is read, super chats are the way to get that done. Let's get to those aforementioned super chats. And we start off with my guy, Door Gunner. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, you should enter the Olympics breakdancing, LOL. Well, I wouldn't even qualify, but I know some people who would be in the trials to get in to the Olympics as breakdancers. But the fact that we're even having a conversation, I know you're joking, but I wouldn't be shocked to look up in 10 years from now and breakdancing is in the Olympics. Like it's gotten to that level of absurdity with the stuff that I'm seeing. I'm like, how in the hell is that an Olympic sport? Right? I mean, it's amazing watching some of these sports, and I'm like, yo, people are going nuts over this. Is this really an Olympic sport? Like, who? One of my favorite comedians to see live is TK Kirkland, and one of his favorite lines is, "Who raised you?" And I'm just looking at these events. Who made this an Olympic event? Who did this? Who raised you for us to be watching this and have it be an Olympic event? This is insane. So it's funny to hear you say, that, but it's not that far-fetched after watching what I watched this weekend. It's not that far-fetched that breakdancing might be an Olympic sport, in the 2032 Olympic Games in 8 years. Dory Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes? Eli was good, not great. Preach. Never top 5 when he played, career 500 record, and led league in interceptions a bunch. I don't know if a bunch is accurate, but he definitely led the league in interceptions at least twice, for sure. Hall of Fame should only be for great players. I agree. I've been making that argument as a quote-unquote gatekeeper of the Hall of Fame. It's the thing that Deion Sanders brought up a couple of years ago when he said, if you're going to start letting everybody in, and we need to have levels to this, which they're not going to do. But he's like, the Hall of Fame should be for the truly elite players. You can't just be letting anybody in. And he said that a couple of years ago when I looked at some of the people getting in. And I'm like, yo, this dude, that guy, and that guy shouldn't be getting in the Hall. What are we doing right now? Like, the Hall of Fame shouldn't be for everybody. I love baseball's Hall of Fame because they don't give a shit if their class is one guy. They don't care if their class is 2 dudes or nobody. One year, I think like 3 years ago, nobody got in. They don't give a shit. Like, if you don't meet the requirements and you don't get the proper amount of votes, we are not just letting dudes in. The NFL, they let dudes in every year, right? And it's just like, what are we doing here? Eli Manning will get in. And as much as I don't think he was a great player throughout his career, he was a damn good player. And he won 2 Super Bowls. And for that, and the way he won those 2 Super Bowls, he's got 2 of the most iconic plays in Super Bowl history. One for sure with the David Tyree helmet catch. Beating that Patriots team off the strength of that one alone, he probably would have gotten in. That was a feat that many people didn't think he could achieve. And he got it done. And then to go and replicate that again 4 years later in 2011 by beating the Patriots yet again with another, epic throw down the sideline, that one to Mario Manningham. I think Eli established himself as a Hall of Fame player because there are not many players in the Hall of Fame at the quarterback position that have won multiple Super Bowls. That is something that is reserved for the best of the best. Aaron Rodgers only has 1 Super Bowl. Drew Brees only has 1 Super Bowl. Like, there's a lot of dudes. If not for the Denver defense, God bless the Denver 2015 defense. Peyton Manning has 1 Super Bowl ring in his career, right? Eli has a 1-up on him. So it's not a lot of guys. We watched some of the best quarterbacks. Ben Roethlisberger, I think, has 2 rings, and you would have thought he had 4 or 5 the way his career went, but he won 1, I want to say, in his second season in the NFL in 05, and then I think he won another one in like 09, the 2010 Super Bowl against the Cardinals, whenever that was. So he should have won against Green Bay too, and that would have given him a 3rd one. That would have put him in a different rarefied air. But at the end of the day, when you look at the quarterback position, not many guys can say they got multiple Super Bowl rings, and Eli does. And I don't think he's a Hall of Fame player from his regular season accomplishments. Overall, you look at his full body of work. No, I don't think he's a Hall of Fame player. But when you factor in the postseason and the 2 Super Bowls and some of those iconic plays, that's what ultimately push him over the top. That, and his last name is Manning too. That helps. But it's a debate, but it's going to fall on deaf ears. Don't waste your breath. Eli Manning is getting in, and he's getting in on the first ballot. So that's not one that I'm willing to fight. Although I don't necessarily disagree with you. But you got to acknowledge the Super Bowls, and they count, and they mean something. And he has 2 of them. And the 07 one in particular, beating what many perceive to be the greatest team in NFL regular season history who didn't get it done in the Super Bowl, they were 18-0. They were 18-0. And if Eli doesn't take them out and make them 18-1, the 72 Dolphins cease to exist in terms of their relevance. So Eli's getting in. Mark Mullinex, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. Y'all know what to do. Show my guy, Mark Mullinex, some love. Welcome him to the squad with open arms. Mark, great to have you. Welcome aboard. Look forward to chopping it up with you. Door Gunner, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Door Gunner writes, breakdancing is an Olympic sport. First year this Olympics. I was born 30 years too early for that event. You got to be kidding me. I don't believe you. You're not going to get me like that. I'm not that easy to trick. No way that's a real sport. I'm not buying it. But you know what? You know what's crazy is I wouldn't be shocked if it was. I would not be shocked because it's craziness. The events that I'm seeing, I'm like, who made that shit up? And then who sanctioned this to become an Olympic sport? Who was smoking weed and you know, like the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, they had to be passing a serious spliff around. Like, bro, you know what would be a really good sport? I'm telling you, man, this shit is crazy. If we take a small miniature basketball and let dudes dribble it and take 2 steps and throw that shit into a net, that shit'll be crazy, right? And then the next person he passes it to be like, and they should have a goalie blocking that shit. It'll be fire. And if you get fouled, if we have a free throw line that you can't jump in front of, you can't move, you can fake it 17 times, but you can still throw it past the goalie. And if you miss and he blocks it, you can try to put it back in the hoop. I'm telling you, this shit'll be crazy. I can't imagine some of these joints where, like, we really making this an Olympic sport? Like, it's something somebody made up in their backyard, and we making this into an Olympic sport. It's crazy. You know what it felt like? You know, remember basketball? Remember the movie Basketball? That's what some of these Olympic sports feel like. Some shit you made up in your driveway, and it became this big sport and it took on a life of its own. Like, why not make basketball an Olympic sport at this point? If we making all of this other shit, why not make basketball an Olympic sport at this point? I don't know. I digress. Anyway, let's get to the comment section. I got about 5 to 7 minutes. We can chop it up. Let's see. Let's get to the comment section. See where you guys at. All right. Let's see. Man, I'm getting old. Somebody said Louie T always forgetting names. I'm getting old, man. I'm getting old, bro. Samuel, that's a MusicHead University question, bro. I mean, I could answer that now, but I'd have to sit here and compile a list. I told y'all I hate when y'all try to put me on the spot with lists. Like, I don't like doing it because I'm gonna forget something. It's inevitable. Cam G says, just heard the first 2 Jodeci albums, second greatest R&B group behind New Edition. I'm a youngin', by the way. Good for you going back. I love when young kids go back and do the history, do the work. So many young kids are totally oblivious to what good music really sounds like and don't bother to go back and figure it out. You know, they just stick with their shit and don't bother to go back to find out what real music was like. And I don't like to be that guy, but when it comes to music, I'm that guy. I don't mind being that guy. Cam G says, Forever My Lady or Diary of a Mad Band? Diary of a Mad Band, man. I gotta go with Diary of a Mad Band. They're both great albums. Don't get it twisted, but I think I'm a Diary of a Mad Band Jodeci fan. But it's a lot of good R&B in the 90s, man. I literally was just talking about R&B in the 90s was different. Anyway, I digress. Don't get me started. Again, we about to turn it up on that channel too. Van Negro Jones, right? Them DMV Olympians making the DMV proud, man. They are crushing it. It's talent. I tell people all the time, man, it's talent over here. You know, KD did that documentary not too long ago, Something in the Water. It's talent in the DMV area. It's talent in Virginia. It's talent in Maryland. It's talent in DC. Like, it's a lot of it. And you know, it's one thing to be an American, and you take it to another level when they from your neck of the woods. You feel even better about that. You know what I'm saying? Just Get the Money says, how many of the Commanders would start on Dallas right now? How many players would start on Dallas? Just the guys that we expect. Tress Way would probably start on the Cowboys because I don't think they have a great punter. Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen would start on the Cowboys. They don't have a dominant defensive tackle. Terry McLaurin would start alongside CeeDee Lamb on the Cowboys. Bobby Wagner would start on the Dallas Cowboys at linebacker. Frankie Louvu, I think, would start at linebacker for the Dallas Cowboys. That's probably it. I don't know who their nickel corner is. It's too early for me to say Mike Sainristil would start on Dallas because we haven't even seen him play in an NFL game. So I won't do that. I won't go that far. But I think that, and Sam Cosmi, I think, would start on their offensive line because they've had a lot of changes and they're shuffling the deck on their offensive line. So I think Cosmi would start at probably left guard for them. You might be able to kick Tyler Smith out to left tackle. So I do think that would be something that they would have to explore. That would be interesting because if you keep Tyler Smith at guard, would Cosmi start over him, or he's not starting over Zach Martin at right guard, which is where Cosmi, currently plays. Could he start at left guard? I think you could put him in over Tyler Smith, but Cowboys fans might argue, nah, we good with our guy, and I wouldn't be mad at that. I don't think we have any other players that would start on their team. That feels like the extent of startable players on their roster. Let's see. Yep, y'all. I see y'all. Allen is 12th all time. I saw y'all put that up there, and that's crazy, right? 12th all time. When he retired, he was 10th. He should be in. He should be in. He should be in. He'll get in eventually, I think. It might just take a little bit longer. Van Negro Jones writes, it doesn't matter that the season is 17 games. What matters is how many games a running back would take to reach the 2,000 yards. Yeah, but reaching 2,000 is a milestone, but somebody's going to eventually break Eric Dickerson's record, and he did it in 16 games, is my point, right? So somebody's going to break his record, and they're going to do it in more games. So to your point, I don't see anybody reaching 2,000 yards before 16 games. It could happen, but we've seen guys on torrid paces need that 16th and final game to reach 2,000. I watched AP in that 2012 year. He needed that final game to not only get to 2,000, but to almost break Eric Dickerson's record. He fell 7 yards short. I watched Chris Johnson in his 2,000-yard season and the cartoonish numbers he was putting up. He still needed that final game to get to 2,000 yards. I watched Jamal Lewis in his 2,000-yard season. He needed that final game. Like, I don't see anybody getting 2,000 yards in under 16 games. My thing is, now that you get 17 and 18 games, somebody's going to break ED's record, and that's going to make me feel some type of way. That's all I'm saying. Same thing with the 2,000 yards at receiver. No one's been able to do it in 16 games. Somebody's going to do it in 17 or 18 games. Guys have come close. Cooper Kupp came close in 2021. Heavens to Megatron came close in like 2017 or something, like one of those years the Lions were super garbage, but he was outstanding. Tyreek Hill almost did it last year, but that was in 17 games though, right? So somebody's eventually going to do it. They keep adding games. Somebody's going to do it. It's just going to make it feel. I won't say it won't. I won't devalue the record. I just would look at it like, I wonder if you would have been able to do it. And I know the answer, because if it takes you 18 games to get to 2,000 yards, you wouldn't have been able to do it in 16, right? So, and then you think about guys who only played in 14 or 16 games. O.J. Simpson was the first 2,000-yard rusher. He did that in 14 games. Could you imagine what O.J. would have done in a 16-game season? Eric Dickerson wouldn't be the record holder right now, right? So I guess when you look at it from that prism, from that lens, it's just the nature of the beast. It's just how it goes. It was once 14, then it went to 16. And eventually it's going to get to 18, and we'll just have to respect the records for what they are once we get there. Twin D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy Twin D writes, hey, LT, what's up, Twin D? Says, quick question. Shoot. Can you do a quick compare and contrast between Bryce Huff and Dorrance Armstrong? My daughter, Philadelphian, is repping Philly hard. So Dorrance Armstrong is a more complete player than Bryce Huff. So Bryce Huff is the more natural of the two in terms of pass rushing ability. He's twitchier. He's more explosive. Bryce Huff is made to come off the edge and get to the quarterback, which is what he did with the Jets as a situational pass rusher. Bryce Huff is not built to stop the run, which is why the Jets did not feature him in obvious rushing situations, first and second down. And their defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, in Philadelphia, has already said Bryce Huff is not positioned as of right now to be an every down player. He says that doesn't mean we won't eventually get him to where we need him to be, but he's not built to play all 3 downs right now. Translation, he's too light in the pants, and he's not one of those guys that's gonna, bulk. His frame suggests he can bulk up. He is who he is as a player. The Eagles knew what they were doing when they swapped out Bryce Huff, or they swapped out Hassan Reddick for Bryce Huff. They knew what they were doing. They were being cheap. They were cutting a corner. And so they're hoping, they're praying that these guys that they've drafted in the first round, Nolan Smith in particular out of Georgia, that these guys develop. If not, they're going to have egg on their face, because Bryce Huff, while he can get to the quarterback, you're paying money for a guy to essentially come off the bench in obvious passing situations to get to the quarterback. You don't pay that kind of money. I think they're paying him $16 million a year, something like that. I'm not paying a guy $16 million a year for 2-minute and third downs. Not doing that. Dorrance Armstrong can stop the run. He can play multiple positions. You can kick Dorrance Armstrong inside. Dallas used to do it all the time, and he would play the 3 technique and rush from there. Obviously, he can play base, 4-3 defensive end. You can stand him up. You can move him around. He's athletic enough to do that. He's stout against the run, and he can still get to the quarterback. He had 8.5 sacks last year, so he's trending in the right direction. Bryce Huff had double-digit sacks last year in less snaps, higher win rate. So he's a pass rusher through and through. Armstrong is the more complete player. He's the more diverse player. He can do more things. But if we're just talking about a specific trait, Bryce Huff has that over Dorrance Armstrong and the ability to get to the quarterback. But if we're talking about a complete player, a guy that you can play all 3 downs, not have to take off the field, Armstrong wins out in that conversation. And so which do you want? You want to pay $30 million total, 10 a year for a guy that can do everything? Maybe not as high as Huff can at get to the quarterback, but a guy that can be on the field for all 3 downs. You want to pay $30 million for that, or you want to pay $48 million over 3 years for a guy that can only play on third downs and in situations like 2-minute and end of game situations? Your choice. I know which one I'm taking. So that's the compare and contrast there. So Todd Labor says, what modern era player from the 60s, 80s do you want to get into Canton in 2025? Well, we're both biased, Joe. Todd, excuse me. We're both. I was about to call you Joe because I'm thinking about Joe Jacoby. Todd, we're both biased. We both want to see Joe Jacoby get in. He should have been in a long time ago. So yeah, I think we both agree on that. I'm seeing y'all talk about breakdancing and saying it's a real sport. Like, stop playing with me. I don't believe you. You need more people. I don't believe you. You guys are pulling my leg. I'm not doing that. There's no way that that's a real Olympic sport. It's crazy. JP, John Perez says, do you think Stroud can win an MVP? Absolutely, he can. We'll see what I'm dying to see what year 2 looks like, what the encore from year 1 looks like, because now there's a lot of pressure on him. There was no pressure in his first year. Texans stink. You were the number 2 overall pick. A lot of the attention was going to Bryce in Carolina and his struggles. And so he was kind of like allowed to be under the radar. And, what he did was fantastic with the Texans last year. Now it's a different type of target on his back. Now people are putting you in these categories and labeling you as a top 5 quarterback. He's definitely top 10 on most lists that I've seen after one season. So, and the expectations are through the roof. The Texans are going all in because they think they got their guy at quarterback, and I do too, by the way. But now I want to see what he does when everybody's gunning for you. Everybody knows who you are. There's an expectation level. I want to see what he does now. So, he absolutely can. They added Stephon Diggs. They already had Nico Collins, who went off last year, got an extension this offseason. They got a bunch of tight ends. They got Tank Dell as their third receiver. They're loaded. They added Joe Mixon. They're loaded. Yeah, he can absolutely win the MVP. Will he is a different story, but he's definitely capable. So anyway, I digress. Let's go ahead and get to the final segment of the show. And that is, of course, garbage time. So if you're out there, you haven't hit the like button, please do so. Really appreciate everybody that's joining me here on the podcast. Hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, all that good jazz. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss a thing, because sometimes the kid be real random. I'll pop up with a stream and go live 5 minutes after the stream pops up. It ain't like I used to when I was a young pup in the game, and I would put these live streams up a day or 2 ahead of time. Now it's like I'm all over the place, so you just never know when one's gonna pop up. So make sure you have those notifications on. Be a part of that Noti gang. Turn that notification bell on so you don't miss a thing. We got football this week. In case you guys have not been keeping score at home, I told you last week that the Hall of Fame game signifies the start of the NFL season, essentially. Again, they don't count yet, but shit, football's football at this point. We over here jonesing and come on, baby, just give me one preseason game, right? We over here on some Tyrone Biggums type shit. So at this point, look, Patriots and Panthers has to be one of the worst matchups of week 1. And I'm like, yo, put that on my TV, man. What you waiting on? Let me see what the hell Drake May's talking about. Put that shit on my screen. They got to put Bryce out there, right? New coach, new offense. They got to roll Bryce out there for a possession or two. Let me put that shit on my screen. Let me see what that look like, right? Like, I'm over here fiending, man. Let me get that. Come on, baby. Let me get that. It's Patriots and Panthers. That's horrible. I want it. So those are Thursday games, and that's going to get it kicked off. Patriots, Panthers is NFL Network. I think also Giants and Lions are that same Thursday. And then we often rerun it. You got about 7-8 games on Friday. Another, I think it's like 7 games on Friday, 6 games on Saturday, 2 games on Thursday, and 2 games on Sunday. So it's got to be 12 and 12. So it's probably like 6 on Friday, 6 on Saturday, 2 on Thursday, 2 on Sunday. Cowboys play on the Rams, which that's a nothing burger. Nobody's playing in that game. So we'll see what some of these games are going to interest me. Like the Bills play and we'll get into this in the particulars on either tomorrow's episode. We may have another podcast on Thursday. I'm still trying to decide if I want to do one on Thursday or not. But Bears play the Bills in week 1 of the preseason. Obviously, Hard Knocks is tomorrow. So you won't see any of that this week. You'll see that probably on next week's show, obviously. What you'll see this week is the Hall of Fame game and all of that stuff, more likely than not. But will Caleb Williams make his NFL debut? We already know Jaden Daniels will against the Jets on Saturday. And just so you know, some of y'all might get tricked up by the time. The Commanders preseason game, number 1 versus the Jets, is a noon start on Saturday afternoon. Okay, it's the first game on Saturday. The rest of those games start 1 o'clock and later. Washington starts at noon. So don't get tricked up. Normally we play at night at 7 o'clock. Not the case in this particular game. We're playing the Jets at noon on Saturday. So make sure you set your alarm and your calendars accordingly so you don't miss out. But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to this first week of preseason. I'm finked up. I haven't been finked up like this in a long time. And I think part of it is because my team, the excitement for my own team is so great that I'm chomping at the bit to get after it. But the Hall of Fame game, and I said this, if you were with me last week, the Hall of Fame game wasn't that bad. It was actually a well-played game. I'm glad it got ended when it did with the weather, because we were getting to the point of the game where they were going to look to run the ball, both teams, and try to get out of there. So we didn't need to sit through another, 15 to 30 minutes of that, when you could just end the game right where it was and say, hey, that was a well-played game, right? So looking forward to preseason week number 1. Maybe I won't feel as good in preseason week number 2 as 1, but right now I'm like, yo, give it to me. Give me, right? I want it all. So, and we'll be chronicling a lot of it here on the Louie T Network. So, and I'm gonna be all over it. I'm not even gonna front, because I'm trying to win, and winners and losers and soul survive. I'm trying to win. Like, I need all the information that I can acquire, and so I'm gonna be all over it this year. So, you already know what it is. I've already told y'all I'm a man on a mission. So, anyway, I digress. You guys, get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day. For most of you, if you're Commanders fans, I'm gonna be live later on tonight. So keep that in mind, and hopefully you'll be able to join me. I'll be on live with my guy Tones over on Protect Sports' channel. Make sure you check us out over there. We be talking Commanders ball at 9 p.m. tonight. And then right after I get off with him, I'm hopping on, and I got another Commander stream. We talk about the 53-man roster, among other topics. So with that said, y'all get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day. I look forward to kicking it with y'all. The rest of this week is going to be crazy. We ramping up. I want y'all to come along for the ride, because we going to shake the rust off. Get this preseason rust up off us, so when the regular season hits, we hit the ground running. And running. Anyway, y'all have a good one. Take care. God bless. Good night.